Governor of Florida just signed a new law that makes it easier for hotels and commercial businesses to get rid of squatters. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today. It's coming out of the state of Florida, and it has to do with squatters. And I talk about this a lot because this has been an issue that's been on a lot of people's minds lately. So Florida, I believe last year, they passed a anti-squatter law that basically allows a landlord in a residential property to sign a written affidavit, and then they're able to remove a person who is squatting in their property very quickly. I believe the police are just able to remove them, because they're trespassing. They've trespassed, breaking and entering, etc. Robbery. I mean, simply put, these squatters are pure criminals. And so I don't believe the law applied to commercial properties before, but now they've made adjustments to that law and passed new legislation that allows commercial properties to also benefit from stronger protections against these criminals. Okay, so I'm all for it. I believe that these sort of laws should be passed in every single state throughout the entire country, including the one where I live here in Nebraska, because we don't have those sort of laws on the books yet. But the politicians here, they're looking into it. They hopefully will be passing something soon. That's all I can say, hopefully, because until it actually is passed, we're always going to have this fear in our heads that, hey, one day somebody could step up into our property and then we have to go through expensive legal process. Even if, keep in mind, the legal process for evictions here in Nebraska and in a lot of states is relatively quick. Okay, so you can get a tenant up out of there quickly. However, even losing a single month of rent or 2 months of rent, I mean, that's thousands of dollars we're talking about here. Not only that, but the person, while they're in there, they could trash the place, they could steal your property. I mean, you don't even know who it is who's staying in there in a lot of these cases. So yeah, and they could get away scot-free. And the only way you might be able to get these people out is by paying them. Even here, we face the exact same issues. That's why I say these laws, they need to be passed. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So do you think it's a good move for the state of Florida to also apply this law to commercial buildings, those short-term hotels, etc.? I know at least here and in a lot of different places, these hotels, they're like extended stay hotels, and they become kind of de facto places for people who cannot rent an apartment or cannot find somewhere to live or cannot afford to get furnishings for their place. They just say, hey, I'll pay by the week, I'll stay in this little long-term hotel or extended stay hotel. And do you think that it's a good idea to pass the law to make it so that it's easy to remove those people as well? I do. I really do. Okay? And I don't think that those people, they should have a right to stay in these sort of places. I believe the business owners, regardless of if it is a residential or commercial property, need the ability to remove these people so that they don't face just substantial losses. But anyway, let me get into the article. I want to tell you exactly what they're trying to do down in Florida. This article is coming from News Radio WFLA, and it says, DeSantis signs new law letting hotels and businesses kick out squatters. Let's get into it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed 2 bills aimed at strengthening property rights by streamlining the process for commercial properties and hotel owners to remove unauthorized occupants. Senate Bill 322 allows commercial property owners to request immediate removal of individuals unlawfully occupying their properties. To initiate this process, property owners must submit a verified complaint to the county sheriff confirming their ownership and that the occupants are unauthorized. Upon verification, sheriffs are authorized to serve notice and remove the individuals from the premises. The bill also introduces stricter penalties for unauthorized occupants who cause significant property damage, classifying damages exceeding $1,000 as a second-degree felony. And that's exactly what we need, okay? We need stiff penalties for those who damage property, stiff penalties for those who steal property, and the ability to remove tenants or, non-tenants, I guess you would call them squatters, from your property immediately. That's it. We need all of these things. Otherwise, landlords, property owners, business owners are going to continue to be abused And we're going to end up in a situation like they got out there in California, where you got people squatting in properties for months on end, sometimes years on end. And the owners, they cannot get rid of them without paying them out of pocket thousands of dollars. Okay, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. You know, you have to balance, hey, how much am I going to lose in, you know, if I'm not paid rent for a year or 2 years, versus, hey, maybe giving this person $5,000 to kick rocks, maybe that's worth it. Okay. But at the same time, the police, you know, they know these people are squatters. Yet their hands are tied because of the laws in those states, in those municipalities, okay? And I disagree with those laws. I think that, hey, no, it's not a civil thing. Yes, it is a crime, and they should be charged accordingly. Senate Bill 606 addresses issues within the hospitality industry, particularly concerning guests who overstay or fail to pay for their accommodations. The bill clarifies that stays in hotels, motels, vacation rentals, bed and breakfasts, or timeshares are considered transient unless a written agreement states otherwise. This distinction allows law enforcement to remove non-paying guests without requiring property owners to undergo lengthy eviction processes. I like this. I like this a lot. Now, one thing I didn't mention before, short-term rentals, you know, Airbnbs, VRBO, all of that, right? So imagine you rented out your entire house, fully furnished, etc., to, you know, I guess you would, you're a host and you rented it to a guest. And that person comes in there like, hey, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I've been here for a month. I'm a tenant now. No, you're not. Okay. You're transient. This transaction was transient. You've got to go. And I can get law enforcement down there to remove that person. Now, in Florida, this is particularly useful because there are a ton of vacation rentals down there. Now, I personally believe that this sort of law should be applied everywhere. Because yes, there are vacation rentals here. And I remember I read a story. I even covered a story in one of my videos about a Airbnb host who was having issues with this guest who refused to leave, and they were having to go through the civil eviction process. That's here in Nebraska, landlord-friendly state with stronger property rights than these coastal places, yet they were still having the exact same issue. That's why I tell you, these laws need to pass in every single state. Additionally, the bill mandates that public food service establishments clearly disclose any automatic service charges or gratuities on menus, contracts, and receipts. Nothing to do with landlords there. Governor DeSantis emphasized the importance of these measures in protecting property owners' rights and maintaining order. DeSantis stated, "Property rights are essential to maintaining an orderly and stable society. Businesses, including hotels and motels, should not be forced to go through arduous and costly eviction processes to reclaim their property from unauthorized occupants." The Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association expressed support for the new legislation. Both SB 322 and SB 606 are set to take effect on July 1st, providing commercial property and hotel owners with enhanced tools to address unauthorized occupancy and protect their investments. So yeah, like I said, the main one there would be the extended stay hotels where people kind of live in these places, right? They will be able to get rid of these people easily, even if the person has been there over a certain specified amount of time. Also, the short-term rentals, they will be able to get rid of these people immediately. And of course, since they've already passed the legislation for long-term rentals, this is all good. This is all very, very good. I wish that the politicians in my state would look at this issue as seriously as, because it's a serious issue. And they can talk about, like in a lot of places, the tenant rights advocates, they talk about, oh, this is a non-issue. This is a non-issue. You don't know how many times this has happened because every time it happens, it's not reported. Okay? That's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. Okay? If somebody is squatting in your house, and then you go through the eviction process and get that person out of there, is that reported as an eviction of a squatter, or is that reported as an eviction of a regular tenant? And in a lot of cases, it is considered, they're considered a regular tenant. So this is just a regular, so there's no record in the system saying that this has happened. In other cases, like I said, the landlord has paid out of pocket to get that person to leave, giving them some sort of financial incentive just to get them up out of their property quickly and easily, and that's not reported either. So yeah, there's a lot of cases that aren't reported, and the ones that are reported, you know what, the number, it makes it look a lot smaller than it truly is. So yes, this is an important issue. This could happen to anybody, and I'm glad to see these sort of laws passing. But what do you think? Go ahead and put a comment in the comment section down below.